Sweet. And we are live. Guys, this is going to be the first part of the 7-figure challenge, and there was no one better who I could have brought on besides Gary Harper. I would say the GOAT of systems in the real estate space, the man who everybody goes to when they actually want to build a business. He has a Amazon bestseller, and then over the next couple months, he's going to be speaking at Columbia, TED, and MIT. I think MIT is TED's cool, but I think speaking MIT is a flex. Like that one's
that's
speaking MIT is awesome.
That's this week. Excited about it.
Oh, I'm so excited. But thank you so much for coming on, Gary.
Absolutely.
For those of you guys who don't know, and if you are just tuning in, I'm doing a 7-figure challenge where I'm going to scale a company to 7 figures net in 6 months. We've scaled multiple other companies to 7 figures, but 7 figures in rev compared to 7 figures net is two completely different games, especially from an infrastructure standpoint, cost standpoint, all that other good stuff. And so I think it's going to be really exciting and really fun. Gary, thank you so much for coming on, dude.
Absolutely. What a great challenge, man. I'm excited for you. And to put it out there, what a level of accountability, right? Like it's some things for somebody to think about doing, but to put it out there for everybody to, hey, that's why I share my purpose, right? Like why I want to give $2.6 million to God's work by 2026. It's not a boastful thing. It's an accountability thing, right? Like in 2020, somebody's going to ask me, where are we at? So in 6 months, bro, people are going to ask you where we at.
And so I connected a bank account to the Resimply account that I'm going to go over every week. Like full transparency, I'm going to live stream everything.
Cool.
I may be a little bit of a psychopath, but
hey, it'll hold you accountable for sure. I mean, it's one of the reasons why 75 Hard is so successful and things like that. It's accountability. We're talking about systems, man. But at the end of the day, you know, if you don't have accountability, you don't have a good system.
I think the hardest accountability for me, I hate meetings. I hate them. I know I need them. Like level 10s are great. Huddles are great. And I think this is a good way to start off. I hate having a lot of direct reports. Okay. At a point in time, we had call magicians. We had like about 150 internal employees, and that was like all virtual. And we ended up winding it down because, I mean, the call center space, you don't make a ton of money for the amount of people headaches you have, essentially.
Yeah.
How should I get around that as far as hating having a ton of direct reports? I want to deal with like a team of 6 people, like department heads, and that's what I love.
Well, I mean, it's 5 to 7. That's the number. That's a magic number. Is that you don't want to go above that. And honestly, you can be effective leading people when you get north of that. You know, right now I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 direct reports. That's who I have. I have 3 right now. I have Austin. I have Brandon. I have Austin, Brandon, Susan, and Andy. We just added Andy, so that's 4. I have 4 direct reports at this point, and then it was 3. I like in that number, man. I really like the 3 to 5. I don't like getting above 5. 5 to 7. It's just, you know, it's too much drama. It's too much headaches.
Yep.
So I'm okay not having more than that.
5 to 7. And then what's your cadence like with them? I used to think one-on-ones were really dumb because I was talking to them every day. But now I see that it's good just to check in with them.
Yeah.
Just so they can know where they're at, right? And it just goes in developing as a leader more. And so, like, what's your cadence like with those 6 people?
Well, of the 4 I have, I'm looking for a daily check-in. And that naturally happens. You can have it scheduled. We're in such unison right now together that it naturally happens. If it wasn't happening regularly, then I would probably push it more. But we look for that. Last Thursday, we had our quarterly session, our ecosystem quarterly session together, and we did that at Disney World. We actually did it at Epcot. We love doing our planning sessions at Epcot. So we started out at Starbucks for an hour, and right there as you walk in, and we spend an hour planning, and then we go from Starbucks to I think Germany. We spend an hour in Germany, and then we go over to America and spend an hour there, and then France. And so we get it done in about 4 to 6 hours. So depending on, you know, each country we're in, we take time and we plan, and then we take time in between each one of those and spend time with the family and go on rides and just kind of relax and enjoy our day. It's a lot of fun, and we do that every quarter just to break up the monotony of sitting in an office And, there's a lot of cool places to sit and chill and just have a good time. And, there's nothing better than, having that team camaraderie at a park like that. So that's really the major meetings I have. I have a daily tactical meeting. I have a weekly organizational meeting with my COO, and it's like a same page meeting where me and him just connect about the performance of the organization and making sure that process and performance are in line. And he shared with me anything at that point that he's adjusting or doing differently to get process or performance. And then we have a monthly profits meeting. We have a monthly P&L meeting. Me and the COO do. And a lot of times we'll invite, our CFO, bookkeeper into that meeting. But then the last meeting we have, I call it these four no more, is my strategic meeting that happens every quarter. And that's that anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, depending on what's going on. But I have an ecosystem. So I have multiple business units that report up to a C-level group. And that's a C-level group that report to me. Those are my 4 C-level people. So my chief growth officer, my chief audit officer, my COO, and my COO, my CFO are kind of sitting in the dual role right now. And then my CMO, my chief marketing officer. So I have those people and they report to me. And that's really all I have to, that's the only people that I really have reporting to me right now.
Have you ever been like fully virtual?
What do you mean, like having no office?
Yeah, like the team, no office,
We don't
everyone's
have
virtual.
I've always been fully virtual. I don't have an office.
What's your keys to building a great virtual culture? Because again, building a virtual culture, I think, is the hardest part. When you're in an office, energy is really, really good. It's easy like to pass over all that stuff really fast. When you don't have that, I feel like it's harder to build culture at scale.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by culture. Culture can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And when somebody thinks of culture, it's like, how much do we interact with each other? How much fun do we have? Things like that. And the truth is, like, obviously, when you're virtual, you're not going to have a lot of that face-to-face, high-fiving, type camaraderie. But culture is really more than that. Culture is about being aligned with each other, right? And pulling in the same direction.
Yep.
And we start with goal alignment. We have to make sure we're all on the same place with goals, right? We have to also make sure we have purpose alignment in the organization. So it's one thing to have goals and everybody shooting towards those goals and being bought into them, but purpose alignment is just as important. We want to make sure in our organization that every person that comes to work for Sharper, they know how their personal purpose is going to be fulfilled by working here. And then the next 2 areas that we call that help grow culture is making sure people are in the right seat and making sure they're the right people. I don't think people put enough credit and give enough credit to putting someone in the right seat, especially as you start to scale, from 0 to 6-figure, 7-figure businesses. You have to have people wear multiple hats a lot of times.
Yeah.
And when we talk about people sitting in the right seat, it's nothing to do with the position title. It's got to do with us putting them in a seat that supports the process properly. Because your business, if you're going to scale to 7 figures, it starts with process.
Yep.
And knowing what processes you're going to have, especially in the time frame you're wanting to crunch it down into, you better right now sit down, figure out every process that you're going to need at 7 figures. What is it going to take to run a 7-figure business in 6 months? And then you better, even more now, you have to go get people that sit in the seat of those processes, and those processes are natural for them. We have a 9-box system that we evaluate right seat. And if someone is in the lower left or bottom or left quadrants of the 9-box, left sides of the 9-box, they're going to slow your growth. Okay. Those people that are in those areas are going to be low performing or low potential people.
Okay.
And if you're going to scale to 7 figures profit in 6 months, 7 months, whatever, you better have people that are already in the processes that are high performing, high potential people. Now, how do we measure that? Performance comes from the desire, I call it the heart, desire of a person, and their skills. You cannot afford right now to go get somebody that's not trained.
No, not at all.
You can't. It takes a minimum of 6 months to get somebody comfortable in a seat.
Yep.
Right. So if you're going to go 6 figures, 7 figures, you're going to have a lot of upfront capital investment in people because you have to bring the talent in right now.
Okay.
Okay. So documenting your processes, knowing what they are, your 6 to 7 core processes, right? Getting them out of your head on paper, and then making sure you're hiring for those processes, not for seats. Don't make the mistake of hiring a title. Go find
What do you mean by that? Like hire for the processes. So like someone who's handling our lead management process.
Yep. So
right?
you're
Someone who's handling the TC
and that sounds
process.
simple, lead management process, but what is your process? Because a lead management process for your company could be totally different than for another company. We've actually hired and are coached a lot of teams, and walking into their office, a lead management process can look vastly different in California than it does in Chicago.
Why is that? Just because of the amount of lead flow?
Regulations, the way they market, all those things, right? Like a business has a pipeline, and that pipeline, the technical term for it is called SIPOC. Supply, input, process, output, customer.
Say that one more time. SIPOC?
Yeah, that's what a pipeline is in a company. The technical term is called SIPOC. You know, like entrepreneurs call it pipeline, but it's the technical term is SIPOC. Supply, input, process, output, customer. So where do you get your supply? How do you bring it in? What's your process once you have it? How do you output, and who's your customer? Who's your ideal avatar? Okay. So a wholesale business, right? We might have multiple channels of supply, right? We can direct mail, we could pay-per-click, we could do ads, we could do text messaging, we could do cold calling, we could do all these different ways in which we bring the supply in. And so lead management, going back to what we came in to talk about here, lead management is then decided on process-wise based on how you're going to do your marketing.
All
how
PPC.
You're going to market for leads.
We're only doing PPC. Like I think everything else has too long of a tailwind in order to like accomplish what you want.
So then you're trapping. You're not hunting. That's going to be your process. Your process of marketing is a trapping process, not a hunting process. You're putting out ads. People that are motivated are then calling you based on your pay-per-click, right? Or websites, or however you're driving them into your, and that's your process. That's why it can be different. You may drive people to a phone call. You might drive people to a website. The website may capture information, and then you call them, right? Your process could be completely different. Your person, because this is what we talked about, getting the person in the right seat. First, you got to know your process. This is what we're talking about. What's your supply? What's your input? What's your process? What's your output? What's your customer? What is your supply, input, process, output, customer? That's your cash conversion cycle. And if you're going to be 7 figures in 6 months, you better have a very short cash conversion cycle, which is why you chose pay-per-click.
Yeah.
See what you're doing? You're already thinking through my cycle times out of supply.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, because like we've run a cold calling company. Cold calling is going to take you 6 to 9 months in all reality to like make any money.
Yeah. So that's not going to happen if you're going to get 7 figures profit, right? Like you can be 7 figures revenue, not profit. So we're going to get the profit. We got to have a faster cash conversion cycle, a faster cycle time inside supply, and it's got to be high profit margins. So that's why you chose PPC. Then you bring it into lead management, which is input. How do we input this into the company? Well, are you going to have them what? You're going to have them go through a website, or you're going to have them call you? Which one?
These are all leads. Lead Zolo is giving, like, we'll start off with 20 leads a day. So like these phone calls that are coming in, it's going to me or a team member.
Good. So that question was, are they calling you or are you calling them? And the answer was they're calling you.
Yep.
Okay. So now you have to document that process. They call you, you vet the lead, you do all these things to get them to an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it starts with new lead received and it ends with appointment set. That's your bookends for your process, your lead management process. Now I need to find somebody who desires to receive those calls And I need to find somebody who has experience in handling those calls.
Yep.
That is going to create performance. That's why we call it the heart and the hands. What do my hands do? What experience do I have? And what is my desire? If I have the desire and I have the skills to do it, I'm going to perform that job. Then we evaluate the second side of that, which is what's the potential of you doing this job and to what level you can do this job and how long. So potential is measured by behavior, which is head, and your feet, what moves you, what gets you going, what motivates you.
Yep.
Right? So we look at those two things right there and the potential of the person. That's why we use predictive index, because it tells us the behavioral traits that are best for the process you just designed. So if I'm going to have somebody that's going to be coming in, calls that are going to be coming in, are they vetting the lead? Are they overcoming problems? Are they searching for motivation while they're on the call?
Oh yeah, I'd say stereotypical sales process to where it's a 2-call close. First call is discovery. Second call is close.
Good. So then we want an A in predictive that's somewhere in the situational category or agnostic. That's going to lead towards a higher A. We want a higher B. We want somebody who's going to want to connect with people. We want a C that is to the right of center, but not to the right of the B. So they're quick to connect with new people. And then we want a D all the way to the left. We want them inflexible because we want them to be able to hear no many times and not get frustrated. Right?
So I want to hire a bunch of mavericks, right? Mavericks or captains.
You want a promoter / a maverick, but a high B maverick. You want a high B, high C maverick is what you're looking for. You're wanting someone who's going to follow a level of process. My son's profile, for example. His A is to the right, his B is farther to the right, his C is to the right, but his D is all the way to the left. And so he does very well for me on this. He sits in this role essentially for us. It's a sales role, but people call us. We don't call them. So they call us and he has to trap them. I call it a sales trapper, not a sales hunter.
Okay.
A maverick, your more traditional maverick would have a high a B to the right, but not farther than the a C to the left, and a D farther to the left. That's a pure maverick. Those are hunters. Those are people that want to get out and cold call and text and knock on doors and they want to go hunt it out. They don't want to sit and wait for the phone to ring.
I'd say that's a little bit more. I just want to always be moving because I know my PI is a maverick, but I always have to be doing something.
Yeah, so you're going to be like, all right, they're not calling, so maybe I'll text this guy, and you'll have 4 different things going on all at once.
100%.
And that's good, but we want something a little different in this process that you just described. We want a maverick, but we want a higher B over A maverick, with a C that's to the right that follows a process, and that's okay with following a process.
Okay.
So you got to understand, that's why I don't want to hire for a position. I want to hire for the process. When guys were wholesaling and they were doing, double closes and straight wholesale, and then they switched over to novations, they didn't switch out their acquisitions people. And they had mavericks that were doing wholesale, and then they put them in novations, which is a very process-heavy, cross your T's, dot your I's.
Push them and a guide them process.
Yeah. And guys got in trouble because they thought their mavericks could handle the novation style. And you really need more of a strategist or a captain in that seat versus the maverick. So that's why I always tell people, be careful. Don't hire for the position, hire for their process. Because you want somebody who desires that process, think about you as a maverick. Would you want to sit and take those phone calls all day?
No.
Right.
No, I'm a lot more let's get it done.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, here's the process. Here's what it looks like. All right, we're good. All right, pass it off. And then that person has to go build the rest. I'm essentially idea, skeleton. All right, now you can take it from here, but I'm not going to do the rest of it.
Yeah. And so you understand that's going to be the same thing with a maverick coming in this process. And that's why the potential is not there. The desire could be there. The skills could be there from sales, but the potential, which is predictive index, isn't there. So how long will they want to do it before they start to burn out?
Okay.
So you got on this topic because of culture, right? So right goals, right person, right purpose, but right position, right process for that position. And so if you're going to have good culture, you have to put people in the right seat. And the right seat is based on process, not title. Really important to you as you scale this company.
Are you an open profits owner? Like, does everybody know the margins at all times?
Yeah, I'll tell you my margin. My margin right now is at 37%. There you go. Like, I don't care. Like, who cares, right? Last year it was 16. Like, we were scaling. We were investing a lot of profits back into the company for scale, and then we pruned going into 2024. So now the margins are way back up there again. So, like, I'm always open about my profit. I don't care. Like, I'm a business owner. If you have the mindset that, well, he's making this and this and this, and I should be making more, then you're not for us.
Yeah.
Right. You need to go somewhere else. That's not who we are. But I think it's really important to have those things in place. I'm full transparency with our employees. They need to know where we are at all times.
I think it's harder in wholesale because there's no barrier to entry. You know, like, it is easier for someone to leave and every Joe Schmo thinks they can go do it. I mean, I'd say the number one crux of a wholesaler is hiring on acquisitions reps that leave and go start their own company.
Well, and that's because they don't provide them the emotional paycheck.
Okay.
So that's the reason. I mean, people lose people because they were the wrong people. You know, I mean, I have a lot of people that work for me that could be great coaches and go out and do. I mean, I have a lot of coaches now that could go out and do their own thing, and they probably make more money, but that's not the reason they're here. They're not here for the money. They're here for the purpose. So we talked about culture, right? And it's like goals. You got to make sure we align in goals. You got to make sure you're in the right seat. You got to make sure that we have the right people. And we have to make sure we have the right purpose. You know, I think Rise, one of the things we talked about in our Rise book is it's the first business operating system or framework for today's millennial leader. You're a millennial, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, we have 52% of our workforce now is led by millennials, right? And so it's important that us as business owners position our culture in a way that attracts today's millennial. And millennials want the emotional paycheck. They don't want just a financial paycheck. They want the emotional paycheck. And so one of the things we do in Rise is we talk about, like, how to discover the employee's purpose. How to discover your managers and your leaders that work for you, their purpose. Why do I want to know their purpose? Because I want to make sure that my company's purpose is going to help them reach their personal purpose. And I want to make sure that they see that.
Okay.
I don't love mission statements. Mission statements are very baby boomer generation versus millennial. Millennials want belief statements. They want to be able to see that their personal purpose is aligned with the company purpose and they believe in it. So we do an exercise with our teams and we make sure that every employee has their personal purpose identified. And then we go through this exercise to make sure that they see how the company's purpose will help them achieve their personal purpose. And when that doesn't happen, man, people leave. Why? Because they're chasing fulfilling their purpose.
And I always tell people, if you don't want, like, your vision has to be so big that other people's goals can fit in them, right? And if someone sees that they can't make the amount of cash that they want to, they're just going to leave anyways.
That's true.
So, like, if you're just like, I only want to do a couple deals a year, you're never, to me, you can't have small businesses because you can't attract great talent. Yeah. Great talent wants to go big. Great talent wants to build dope shit. Yeah. You're not going to retain the good stuff. You're just going to have mediocre employees if you have small businesses. That's been lifestyle businesses. That's just been my take, what I've seen, what I've learned and experienced.
Well, you've learned a good thing, and that's a very intelligent way to put it because it's right. And the truth is, at the end of the day, we have the teams we deserve.
I like that one.
We do. Leaders have the teams they deserve. If people are bailing on you, it's because of you.
Yep.
If you have high turnover, it's because of you. People quit people. 67% of the people that quit their job in the last 3 years through the Great Resignation cited the emotional paycheck as the reason why they quit, not the pay.
That's insane.
Yeah, they want the emotional paycheck. They want to know that what they do matters and that they're going to fulfill their purpose. And if they're not going to fulfill their purpose, then it's only about money. So they're going to go chase it. They're going to go after money if it's not helping them achieve their purpose.
What would you, so you'd say 60% is emotional purpose, the rest is money? Because I'm reading Brad Jacobs' book right now, How to Make a Few $1 billion. And he was like, number one, they are going to make more money than they ever thought they could. And that is how we are going to retain our top tier talent with great incentive programs that are aligned with the goals. But money is what we are going to lead it with. And I'd say he's playing a different game than most wholesalers, right?
Yeah.
Going up and doing roll-ups. But that's what his number one thing is, money. Like, you need to make great money with us. And I believe in overpaying everybody. Like, pay above market, get the better talent. It's worth it. You're going to have less turnover and all that other good stuff.
Well, I mean, you're going to pay for it somewhere.
Yep. That's a good point.
You know, the emotional paycheck is one of these things. Like, when I say money, like, you got to factor in what drives somebody. It may not just be financial money. It's a lot of times they're like, I need more money. For what? Because there's a translation of what they want that money for. Listen, I have a guy I just hired. He came to work for me. He's a robotics engineer. He just came to work for us recently. And to get him to come on my team, I had to take 2 years of his annual salary and I put it in a bank account. 6 months, set it there. And I said, hey, bro, like, it's here. Like, you have no worries. Like, if it all goes to crap, you still have all this money sitting here. I'm investing in it. We'll pull it out. We'll keep you whole. And he gave him the security to jump ship and come on board with us. Right? We bring him on board and things like that. And I didn't give him a salary per se that was going to be in line with what he would have made this year, but in the next 2 years he will. And this past week, I took him and his family to Disney World. Right? Like, because he said, he's like, you know, I need to make X amount. Like, why? He says, because I have to pay these bills. I have to do this. I do this. And I like to take my kids to Disney every 2 years, or you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. I'm like, what if I paid you this and I took your whole family to Disney for you every 6 months? And he was like, done. Like, it wasn't even a question for him, right? Like, because in his mind, I need this extra because I got to sit it over here. Mm-hmm. And I got to pay taxes on that and everything to have enough set over here to take my kids. I'm like, what if I just do it? I'll pay for it. Like, above and beyond. Just a love offering kind of a thing. He loved it, man. He's like, what is that? That's an emotional paycheck.
So how are you creating different incentive programs for your employees? Like, what was Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, their number one thing, and I know you're a founders guy, the dude talks about it all the time. Incentives control the world. Show me your incentives, I'll show you your future.
Well, incentives have to be driven by the person. So I do a lot of assessments, right? You know, the 5 love language book, there's the 5 appreciations of the workplace. So you have to study the person. If you're going to have strong relationships, you got to know the people that are working for you. And you have to incentivize them based on how they want to be incentivized. I was doing this session with a couple the other day, and we were at a client location, but it was husband and wife. And I got to teaching him a little bit this way. And I was like, talk to me a little about, you know, what's the perfect date for you and your wife? And he says, you know, I'll take her to a play. We'll go out for a nice dinner. We'll do all these things together. And everything was about like this fancy, like, experience and all this money spent. And so I looked at a couple of things with her. I looked at her predictive index, which she was a low B. She's an introverted type profile, right? Her love language was quality time. Her find your mojo was learning something new. You know, that's something that she gets driven by, was learning something new, right? And so I started like looking at these different things about her. And her working genius was tenacity. Like, she loved the details of things. So I'm like, listen, what you're doing with her, incentivizing her, showing her love is fine. And I'm sure she's happy with it. But I described a different way to show her love through a date. And I said, what if you like planned a time at home? What if you guys learned a new game together? What if you like learned how to paint together? What if you spent time alone at your house together doing these things, and you let her know a couple days in advance, like the whole agenda of how you have this all planned out for her? And she's like, yes, please. You know, like, she was immediately bought in. She was like, and she said, John, I love it when you take me to a nice place, and I love it, but man, that hits me differently, right? If you were to like, it's just you and me, she gets de-energized being around a lot of people. Quality time, like just her and him, learning something new, and a plan of how they're going to spend time together. She was like, that would be the most romantic date ever. What is that? That's incentive.
Yeah.
Right. And so I utilize that analogy because people, they relate good to that because they're thinking about their spouse right now. They're thinking about their significant other. Businesses have to be the same way. You have to be a leader of people. Right. And in order to lead people, you have to know people.
Yep.
John Maxwell said, good swimmers jump ship. If you want to keep good people on your team, then you better be an A-level leader, because A-level employees don't want to work for a B-level leader. Right?
It's 100% the truth.
And so you have to be, if somebody was to ask me, show me the top 10 companies you see that you've seen scale in the last 10 years, and then tell me what is the number one common denominator between all those companies, I'll tell you what it is. Great leadership.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, probably even more than great leadership, they are students of leadership. They are constantly learning how to be better leaders, those people. You show me somebody who's constantly learning how to be better leaders, I'll show you somebody who has a scaling business that's everything's working and they have great employees that want to be there. Every guy, every lady that goes into trying to scale a business and they're just making it about money, they make it about themselves. And they're like, if you don't like it, don't let the door hit you with a good Lord split you kind of thing. I guarantee you they have terrible culture and they have high turnover. And they're not going to scale quickly.
I always say the number one thing is, after marketing and operations is figured out, all it is leadership to me. Like, I need to be able to recruit and attract really good talent and then lead the best talent, because I'm never going to be in the operations seat. I guess I could be, but I hate it. And then I'll keep my hands on the marketing just because that's what I'm good at. But after that, dude, it is all leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. We said it earlier, 67% of the people quit their job, quit because of lack of emotional paycheck. And then emotional paycheck has to be driven from the leader of the organization. So, it's important. You're going to scale this company. We're not even going to say you're going to try. You are going to scale this company to get to 7 figures of profit. And the way to do that is a very, very well-documented plan. You have to start with your process. You have to put people in the seats based on that process. You have to then go find the people and recruit them based on the emotional paycheck that they want to hear, right? And then you have to make sure that we have a documented vision plan to getting us there. Because people that don't have vision struggle. They want to know how we're getting there. And so if you'll do those things in that order, I think you can fast track this thing to 7 figures very quickly.
How should I incentivize the operations people? I think it's easy for sales reps. Operationally, what do you do when they're not necessarily moving the needle? But I do think everybody getting some type of incentive out of profits is ideal, or whatever the outcome you want it to be.
Well, here's the thing. Like, everybody touches money in an organization. They either touch bringing it in or keeping it.
Yep.
Right? So you have to incentivize based on bringing it in or keeping it in. So operations, finance, that's all back office stuff. You have to incentivize on how many process improvements did they bring? How many incentives or initiatives that saved you money, improved your process, reduced your cycle time. Those are ways to incentivize people that are in operations. How much cost reduction did they have? How do we improve the cycle time of a process? How do we eliminate waste in a process? Right? And so productivity is another way you can measure productivity and incentivize based on productivity. I would, some of the greatest founders, great podcasts, some of the greatest entrepreneurs focus heavily on reducing waste in their businesses.
Yep.
Right? In one of our 9 boxes for our systems aspect, we, just like the right seat, we have right process. So we have to look at the processes in our company and say, do they bring value and are they essential? You can have high value to your customer, non-essential activities in your process, and that's going to cost you money. You could have a low value, high essential process, and that's going to cost you money. If you put the wrong person in those seats, for example, if you're the one sitting in that seat of low value, high essential, that's a low dollar an hour type activity, and that's going to cost you money. And so I would incentivize people by eliminating the low value or low essential steps in process. I would be like the Willy Wonka of, business, bro. Like, you bring me the golden ticket and I'll give you a reward. You find ways to reduce waste in our processes, you get a reward for how much that waste saved us by reducing it. Like, that's a way I incentivize people. You think about that movie Willy Wonka, everybody's out running around fighting over these candy bars. Everybody's trying to get to the next candy bar, split it open, find out whether or not there's a golden ticket. Like, we need our employees trained to be the same way in our processes. They should be like diving through our processes all the time, looking for that golden ticket. Because if they find the golden ticket, you make money and so do they. It's a great way to look at it, right? But anything that's low value, high essential, or high essential, low essential, high value, either one of those combinations, we have to get those processes either out of our company or automated or outsourced to like very low labor.
Yep.
We got to keep our costs as low as possible in there. If your employees can help you identify that stuff, they should be incentivized for that. Because if we don't do that, here's what happens. When we don't incentivize our employees to reduce the waste, low value, low essential things, they will actually fill up their 8 hours with that stuff.
With bloat.
Yeah. And there's a study done in America over the last couple of years that showed that people are only productive for 3.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know what productivity is? It's filling a process that's high value, high essential. That's what productivity is. So that means that people are only running processes for 3.5 hours a day that brought value to a customer or were essential to your business. Like, here's an example of one, right? Low value, high essential, a CRM. Does updating your CRM bring any value to your customer?
No.
So that's low value, high essential, right? Okay. Why in the world would we ever pay a salesperson to do that?
That's a good point. It's a part of their job, right? We just tell them to enter in their notes.
No, it's part of their job to get a sale. Now, I took my salespeople and I gave them an app called Voxer, and I have on Voxer a sales admin that's a low dollar an hour employee to enter their notes.
I like that.
You know why? Because adding that step in their process requires them to have tenacity. Guess what a maverick doesn't have? Tenacity.
Yeah.
So doing that activity, that process is going to drain their energy. And I want their energy as high as possible for the things that they're great at.
Yep.
Right? I don't want them filling up 30, 40% of their day with low value, low essential activity. Just give them a freaking Voxer app. Create the process, give them a Voxer app, and let them Voxer an admin to enter the data for them. Somebody that's a high tenacity, somebody that's like a guardian and PI, a low A, low B, high C, high D profile, that could be a sales admin to do all those activities that we don't want them to do. Because if I have the right person, values and vision, sitting in the right seat, but in bad process, that kills our company's productivity. And poor productivity kills profits.
Yep.
And you're wanting to get the 7-figure profit. You've got to start this path the right way. You've got to start with a process. You've got to make sure we put people in the seat with the right profile based on that process. And then you have to eliminate the steps in the process that's not high value or high essential and get those processes off, either automate them or get them to a low dollar an hour employee.
All right, I got a ton of more questions, and we only got 20 minutes. So I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yeah. I mean, that's gold right there, bro. I'm telling you, I've coached a lot of people. If you'll do that, this will be very powerful for you.
Thank you. I have that one written down. And so with our other company that we scaled to 7 figures, there's a similar model, but we didn't have to work on the weekends.
Okay.
Because everything was generated through cold calling. The cash conversion cycle was long, but the sales cycle was short. Right. It'd take a while for the money to hit our account, but like getting the deal closed, we could do that really, really fast. And then once paperwork's signed, it's signed. How do you incentivize your reps to work on the weekends? It's just like, hey, you know what? This is a part of the game. This is what you're signing up for. If you want to make money, this is what you have to do.
So
or are
let's
you
back up,
incentivizing?
though. Why was it taking so long to get the cash in the bank?
That one was like a government tax credit company.
Okay. That makes sense. So think about that side box: supply, input, process, output, and then customer. So your output to customer cycle time was long because of this.
Extremely long. Like it was ungodly long.
Yeah, I mean, it's that way like for fix and flippers and wholesalers in Miami and upstate New York. Like they could have title issues that take them a year to 2 to clear up. They could close on the deal and still can't get it to the second close or even get paid because of that second level of cycle time is just ridiculous. So how do you incentivize people? Well, first of all, you got to be very clear when hiring them on what the expectations are. I find a lot of times we fail with hiring when we don't set the expectations the right way, and then people come in and what does it do? It affects our culture. And people get frustrated, and then they start looking for other ways to make money and things like that because we weren't clear as leaders on what the expectations was going to be.
Yep.
Right. The other thing too is you can't be hiring like 1099 employees or contractors if you're going to set expectations like that.
Okay.
I mean, as leaders, we hire people and we don't make them employees, and then we try to treat them like an employee, but they're contractors. They're their own business owners. And then, going back to your statement earlier, like it's so hard in a wholesale company because everybody wants to go out and start their own. Well, you're teaching them to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
You're teaching them to pay their own taxes. You're teaching them how to run their own business. You're doing those things by forcing them to be a 1099. And then you're surprised when they go out and start their own company. Well, you harnessed that in them. You fostered that mindset. If you don't want people to run off and start their own companies, then hire employees, not entrepreneurs. And just because they're a maverick doesn't make them ultimately an entrepreneur. They have to, they can still be a maverick and be an employee. It's mindset that causes them to want to jump and go start their own thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what it's very important. When you're bringing people on, make sure you bring people on to understand the mindset that they're employees and you can set the expectations.
I love it.
The other thing too is like, you got to be willing to pay for that too. Cause like, if they're going to be employed, they're going to have some level of a salary.
Yep.
And just, let's be honest with you, man. I've not found too many companies out there that have scaled that did it based on contractors. They scale because they have employees. They have people that are dedicated to the company because they've been given the security of employment. Every situation I've ever coached with a person that had contractors working with them and that were on their main level team, they get to a point of scale, they get to a point of success, and it's all of a sudden the team goes and breaks up. Because everybody's like, I'll just go do it myself.
Because they have no security. And they're like, it's not worth the downside risk, essentially.
Yeah. So they run off and do it their own way.
When we are incentivizing people, how much margin should I be comfortable giving up?
What do you mean, in salaries and what do you mean by giving up?
Like let's say, hey, our reps will get 7 to 10% on the sales side, disposition side, they get 5%. Ops people will get a couple points and just different incentives. Is that what you see? Like what generally do you see is like the best way to keep it lean and mean, but still keep everybody happy and aligned?
Well, I mean, I think total, you've got to keep your payroll at 35% or less. Now, if you're going to incentivize based on profits and they're a contractor, then that's going to be a cog. So that's not going to actually come down into your margins.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a cost of goods. But my payroll, my labor costs, I don't want higher than 35%.
And that includes if they're W-2 and their incentive program, it shouldn't exceed 35%.
Yeah, that's where I like to keep it. That's healthy.
Okay, who's the best entrepreneur you know and why?
The best entrepreneur? Man, I work in so many different niches, and it's interesting to me. Real estate, a lot of the guys in real estate don't have any formal training.
Yeah.
Right. So they're winging it. And best entrepreneur isn't decided upon by success of like how much money they've made. Because in the last 3 to 5 years in entrepreneurship and real estate, people made bank and were terrible leaders. They had terrible processes, terrible employees, and they made money because the market allowed them to make money. And we're seeing it right now. I mean, we're seeing entrepreneurs fall off the wayside. They're falling victim to the economy we're in because they were good at what they did. They weren't great. I came into 2024 saying, if you're good, you will be gone. If you're great, you'll be good. And I've seen it happen. The good are gone. People have to be great to make it through this economy and into 2025. And so, like, I think one of the best in real estate, because that's where most people are going to be listening on this podcast. Eric Brewer's a great leader.
His Facebook content is amazing. Like his leadership Facebook content is the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think Phil Green, phenomenal leader. Stephanie Better's phenomenal leader. I feel like I'm going to piss somebody off here because I mentioned somebody. Ryan Pineda is one of my best friends, but also phenomenal human being, right? And just his purpose is well aligned, and you'll see it. I mean, those are all guys I've coached, and they all scale because they're great entrepreneurs or great leaders, and and they've become great at business because they've become students of leadership, And so, like, I just those are just a couple mentioned, but I think of guys like Matt Oviatt and Phil and Thatch Nugent and Ryan Pineda's and Stephanie Betters and Eric Brewers and all those guys. Like, I keep going, Nathan Brooks, Amanda Dean, like all these people are great entrepreneurs because they were great leaders.
What about outside of real estate?
I've got a couple people. There's an attorney down in Dallas, and I won't share his name because for the nature of what he does, and I don't want I don't want to upset that, but he's one of the best leaders I have outside of real estate. He just minimum person that works for him makes $50,000 a year. I mean, if you're sorting mail, you make $50,000 a year, right? Like it's a minimum salary to work for him. And he has really high margins, great product, great business. His focus is on getting better, not bigger. And then there's some other guys too, but I'm careful here with this because I have a lot of NDAs that I've signed, right?
Yeah.
So I can't share too much. But yeah, I have a couple teams overseas that are phenomenal businesses. Man, some of my overseas companies crush it in the United States. They do better in the United States than Americans do. So, and I ask them, like, how do you guys crush it? And like, so many guys in America don't. And they're like, Americans are lazy,
I'd say, because I've done only virtual assistants.
Yeah.
For all of our companies. Like last year, we had 2 VA sales reps and they closed like $200,000 in a month, like 176 grand or something.
Wow.
And it was in Colombia and the Philippines.
Yeah.
And it's just because they worked harder.
They do. They work harder. I think of a team, that they're literally sitting in the middle of a war zone, and these guys are like, carrying weapons into their meetings because they're dedicated, right? Like they're, we're on Zooms. It's crazy. And so like I'm inspired by that. I think we have a lot of great entrepreneurs. We've worked with over 4,000 businesses now, though, in the last 10 years. So it's so many to start rattling through my head when you ask questions like that.
Besides being a great leader, what do you think makes being a great entrepreneur?
Willing to rise by lifting others. Like becoming your best, becoming successful, reaching your purpose, having a purpose-led business. Not just, we start businesses for two reasons, either fulfill purpose or make money. But even when we start them to make money, at some point they switch over to being led by purpose. And I think that's what makes a great entrepreneur, is someone who's trying to make a difference. We're trying to create impact as entrepreneurs. We have the ability to change more of the economy and the realm of the United States as entrepreneurs than some even the bigger companies do. And so collectively coming together, we have a voice. And I think when entrepreneurs use their skills and their talents the right way, and they rise to their 100% by lifting other people and leading a purpose-filled business, and that creates impact and change. And I think that's a success looks like. And the other thing, I think successful entrepreneurs are successful in life. They're
In
not
every
just
aspect.
successful in money and making money
Yeah.
as business owners. I did a presentation at Caesar's Palace 3 weeks ago at Ryan Pineda's WealthCon event. And I talked about finishing with the end in mind. Like we all go to we go to the store and we buy puzzles and different things like that. And I use the puzzle analogy because I think it's one of the best. Is when I go to Target and I pick out a puzzle, I never pick out a puzzle randomly. I don't just grab one off the shelf and throw it in the cart and go check out and go home and build it. I pick out the puzzle. Here, I'll ask you the question. What would cause you to want to buy a puzzle and put it together?
It has to be a cool picture.
Yeah, it's the picture, right? It's a picture on the front of the puzzle that you're building. And so that's what happens in life. Great, successful entrepreneurs build the picture that they want built for the end. They want to be able to leave this life with the pieces in the right place that built the right picture. And so we have to be able to categorize our life based on these different areas of our life that we want to then put pieces together to fulfill that picture at the end. And business is one aspect of that, but so is relationships, and so is our finances, and so is our health. And these different areas of our life our faith, our spirituality. They all matter. They're all different pieces to our picture. And so I don't think somebody that just makes money is a successful entrepreneur. I think somebody who has harmony in all those pieces and bringing them together to form the right picture is successful.
I think that's the hardest part, honestly. I think that's way harder than just going out and making money. I tell a lot of people don't have kids for a while, because then you'll have something that you love more than your business, and it's a completely different mindset you have to go into.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to. I want to be a great father, and if I want to be a good dad, that's something I have to be the best at. And so now you have two things essentially you have to be the best at now, not just one. And so I tell people, wait until you have kids if you can, because the way I take it, you have to be the best, right? That's the way I approach a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, I don't think there's a lot of people in this world that share that sentiment, because they're not very good dads. They're not very good moms, so
Yeah.
they'd rather be successful. Well, I am a good dad because I provided this, this, and this. But, I had kids at 18, or I got married at basically 18, 19 years old, just turned that age, and had kids, both our kids, by the time I was 21. And so, but I was going down the life of like employment and being that. And then, so when I became an entrepreneur at the age of 35 full time, man, my kids were in full bloom in their life. And so I brought them into it with me, right?
Yeah.
Like I wanted them to be a part of the business with me. And so it's interesting today at 23 and 25, they still work in my companies. They're still partners with me in our companies. I own, multiple businesses, and they work in them and own some of them with me. And so I always say being a successful parent is when your kids want to be there, when they no longer have to be.
Yes.
When they choose to still want to be around you.
When it comes to running multiple businesses, I'm not a fan, at least at the beginning, until you get the skill to do it.
Yeah.
At what point did you know you could do it? I think I've heard an interview like, yeah, if I find an integrator, I'll start it. But for me, I'm in the Hormozy school of thought, to where your shower thoughts are very important. And like those ideas that only a visionary can bring are very, very valuable. And nobody's ever going to be you. And Steve Jobs had Apple, and he had Apple. Bill Gates had Microsoft, and he had Microsoft.
Yeah.
So like, what's your thoughts on that, and like how you manage that dichotomy?
Well, they're a part of an ecosystem. And so when you say Apple had Apple and Microsoft had Microsoft, but they have divisions and different companies within that ecosystem. I used to be an executive at Canon. Canon was the same way. Canon, and then Canon USA, and then Canon Business Process Outsourcing, and Canon Equipment. And like, these are all different businesses, but people know it as one brand, right? And so that's essential. Like, it's so important that if you're going to have multiple businesses, that they're a part of a brand or an ecosystem that eats and feeds off of each other, right? They got to have the same focus, same type of avatar. Second thing is, I don't want to be the resource to those companies. So each one of I call them business units. Each one of my business units have its own leader. We call it a business unit leader. I call it my bull. And my business unit leader reports to my C-level group. And then a part of my business unit leaders, I have my shared resources, so like finance and HR and IT and marketing. Those are shared resources. So those different areas or businesses or shared resources support each of the different business units.
And so it's essentially a holding company, is what
So
I see in my
I
head.
have a holding company at the top, and then I have business units that are their own LLCs or S corps that then are encompassed under that holdings company. So all the profits for each one of those businesses go up into the holdings company.
Yeah.
And then my
How often do you talk to that bull?
My C-level gets paid out of the holdings company.
How often do you talk to that bull, like you yourself?
I don't talk to the bulls.
Okay.
If I talk to the bull, then my COO is not doing his job.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I mean, I do culture meetings once a quarter with the whole company, the whole ecosystem, but that's it. I mean, if there's a one-on-one conversation with the bull, then we have a problem. We have a problem because they're bypassing my COO at that point.
And do you think that is productive to culture? Because let's just say I know a dude who owns a company that does $70 million a year. It's a plumbing company, and he cooks breakfast for all the employees every day at their office.
That's
right?
awesome.
I've seen people who are very integrated in that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So, like, what are your thoughts with that?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to what your culture is, and culture is that actually, the way we do things around here. So if your culture is that you want to cook breakfast for everybody, that's great. I think our culture is virtual. I don't need to have that to never have a healthy culture. I make sure that our purposes align and that we're achieving purpose together in life. It's not a matter of like, do I talk to them as people? When I answer the question, when do I talk to them? I'm assuming you're asking the question around business. When am I talking to them about business? Sure, I hang out with them all the time. I'll talk to our people all the time. That doesn't mean I'm talking to them about business, though. I don't want to have conversations with them about business. I just had a text this morning from one of our business unit leaders telling me he's praying for me and that he loves me and that he appreciates me and that kind of thing. So like it's that type of interaction, not business interaction. So,
okay.
To answer your question properly, I guess, when you say how often I talk to them, I talk to them all the time. I don't talk to them about business though. If a business question comes up, I immediately push it back to the COO or go, hey, is that something that you've talked to your leader about, your manager about, or your business unit leader, or, the COO of the organization? I'm not going to overstep that. The ranks are important to me.
All right. I got 4 more questions. We got like 3 minutes.
Yeah, let's rapid fire.
First off, what are the biggest bottlenecks you see me encountering in this journey, and how should I overcome them?
Right people. Biggest bottleneck is going to be your biggest slow to growth. Right seat. Second, slow to growth. Third, waste in the process. So what I would do is I have a 9-box evaluation of right people, right seat, right process, right product. And I think you need to put your company in those 4 9 boxes to make sure that we have everything in the far right corner of your company. Because if anything's in the bottom left quadrant or corner of that 9 box, you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Okay.
Actually have, let me grab this. This is my little cube right here. So I have right people, right product, right process, right? Like I have, these are all, this is a 9 boxes. So that's what I'm evaluating. I'm evaluating whether or not I have people, process, product, and position aligned properly in the company.
Okay. What books do you recommend to become a better leader that's not John Maxwell, Multipliers, Turn the Ship Around, Leaders Eat Last? What else do I have back there? Yeah, we'll say those. Besides those.
I mean, you didn't even mention my most favorite author. So this is easy for me because my favorite author is Patrick Lencioni.
Besides Patrick Lencioni, too. I've read a bunch of Patrick Lencioni books.
Patrick Lencioni is a phenomenal. Honestly, I mean, you didn't mention mine, but I have 5 books, so I would recommend mine as well. The Rise Business Framework, A Purpose to Rise, which is right here behind me. These are 2 best-selling books on Amazon right now. One is A Fable. Thriving Through Hard Times is another book that I wrote. I think it's important for people being good leaders. The other one that I have is called Master of Time. That's another book, managing your time properly. And the last is Your Business Sick? Those are 5 books that I've written, and more to come. But yeah, I think any books around that. And then there's another book that I actually just started reading. It's by this author right here, but it's called Boundaries Equals Freedom. Joseph Nugent. He has another one called Don't Believe Everything You Think. I think that's a phenomenal book. These are little quick read type books, by the way. You can see how skinny they are, but
Yeah.
they actually take forever to get through because you have so many activities and stuff in there. But I really, really like his stuff. I like the Joseph Nugent is his name. That's him right there.
Sweet. Which Patrick Lencioni book is your favorite? The Motive?
Well, from a family perspective, 3 Big Questions for a Frantic Family. Most people don't know about that book. I asked Patrick when I was with him. I spent a whole day with him about 5 weeks ago, and he's like my lowest selling book. And it's sad because it's basically an operating system for your family. I love that book. And then he has Get Naked, which is a great book for sales. Death by Meeting, another book, so that you say you don't like meetings, that would be a great book for you to read. There's so many. I mean, he has a lot. 5 Dysfunctions of the Team. That's another really good book. And then one other book that I'll recommend to you, Go Giver.
Yep.
You didn't mention that one, but Go Giver Sells More. I'm good friends with those guys as well, and I'll tell you, those are phenomenal books.
What books would you recommend that changed the way you thought about business entirely?
Books that I read. Well, I mean, I think a business operating system, scaling up, make big happen. The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, our Rise Business Framework. Those are all different books that'll help you change your mindset. But I think Rockefeller Habits was the book that tried to really, really help me get the right mindset for business. Everything kind of goes back to Rockefeller. Rockefeller is kind of the godfather of business operating systems. If you've read his stuff, you kind of read most of everything at this point.
Okay. And Rockefeller Habits is the first book of scaling up, right?
No.
Because I've seen it, and then I thought it was just like a 1.0 of scaling up.
No, I mean, everything kind of builds off of the Rockefeller Habit. So that's
okay. I have that one down. And then I think that was my last question. Oh, and then what's a charity that you care about? I'll commit to giving $10,000 of our profits to your favorite charity. We're giving away 10% of the net profits of this challenge.
Wow. Charity. Well, I mean, my purpose is to do good work that supports God's work. And so I don't really have a charity per se. The Bible says, if you've done it unto the least of them, you've done it unto me. So we're building a couple of churches right now in the Philippines and things like that. So anything that you want to donate to that, I have one. Let's do this. Wealthy Kingdom. Wealthy Kingdom would be something I was, and then I have a charity called the Rise Generation as well. It's about educating youth and entrepreneurs, like young entrepreneurs in their teens that want to be an entrepreneur, of how to build their life properly. It's called the Rise Generation, and so that's our not-for-profit, but we're in the infancy stages of that. But Wealthy Kingdom is something that I'm on the board for. It's Ryan Pineda's company, and it's prayer groups for entrepreneurs for their businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Sweet. Thank you, Gary. Any parting words for the people? Thank you so much for your time.
No, I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on here and being able to impart some wisdom with you guys today. Hopefully we covered a lot. Hopefully you're able to walk away with some value here. And remember, everything rises and falls on leadership.
And then where can people find out more about you?
Yeah,
we
you
didn't
go to,
necessarily talk about your book a lot, but we covered all the stuff you cover in your book. So let's plug your book too.
Yeah, risebusinessbooks.com if you want to get a copy of the book. Sharperbusiness.com is my company website. And if you want to follow me personally, it's GaryHarper.com.
I love it. Gary, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, bud.